in December 2023, we did what is called a point in time count. It was where you put officers in the field everywhere and you count a particular body that you're trying to get information on. In this case, it was the homeless person. And we did a point in time count in 2023 and it gave us some data. But you need a series of point in time counts to be able to have a conclusive discussion on, this is the number of persons who are homeless, this is the number of persons doing whatever the issue is. So we're now about to do our second point in time count. This point in time count will be done at a date in July. And it would mean that we would have officers in the field all over Barbados, counting the number of homeless persons that they come into contact with. Of course, there's some persons who are what we call the transient homeless. So they're homeless today and then they're not homeless tomorrow, or they're homeless for a week and then they're... So the data filters out a lot of this. And we have people sleeping from one house to another house to another house, so you may miss those. So there has to be a way to be able to compile all of the data. But we'll be in a position to announce another set of numbers in relation to the homeless by the end of July in Barbados, and that would allow us to intervene with proper policy interventions. And in relation to proper policy interventions, we work with the KFL School of Business. We also work with them on the point of time count to be able to develop a policy that would allow us to address homelessness. The focus of it is really in terms of preventative mechanisms to be able to deal with the issues that I was referring to in relation to what we call upstream issues, or before the event occurs. And we would find that we'd be working a lot on some of the issues that I raised in relation to the family dynamics, in relation to counseling, employment, education. What are the factors that ultimately result in people being homeless, and to address them before they become an issue? I think the issue is that the machine that produces homelessness is what we have to rage against. That's what we have to break down. And so that is what the policy allows us to do. We're going to put the policy out for rigorous discussion with our stakeholders. So during the course of the next few weeks, we're going to subject it to some discussion to all the persons in this space. Then have a policy that I believe should be shaped to go to cabinet also in July. And then we would use that to determine our programs and so on. And if you know how the ministry has worked, and I have worked, between the policy and legislation, there's very limited time. So as long as the policy gives us clear direction, we'll be preparing the legislation to help us address some of these issues as well. And then the last point I want to make is in relation to what I have called the hostile intervention. And the hostile architecture, where we're seeing persons putting up certain things to prevent homeless persons from being near their property. But what that does is that it also prevents people perhaps with a disability or a pregnant person from being able to have access to certain spaces that they should have access to. We're seeing that hostility in its worst manifestation when we saw the attacks on the homeless in town. We're seeing the hostility in terms of the communication, how people speak to homeless persons and so on. And regrettably, sometimes we see hostility also in how it is reported. And so what we're trying to do, part of this sensitization workshop, is to help people who are dealing with persons who are homeless to be able to treat to them with a little bit more dignity. Instead of trying to have this hostile architecture, which in some cases I understand, what we're really trying to do is to prevent it from happening in the first place. Hence the policy, hence the legislation, hence these consultations. So, thank you.